In this video, we're diving into the stories of 11 fascinating countries that no longer exist, from powerful empires to short-lived experiments in statehood. We'll explore the fall of Yugoslavia, a once unified Balkan giant torn apart by war, the mysterious vanishing of the Kingdom of Hawaii after a controversial annexation, and the short-lived United Arab Republic, an ambitious union between Egypt and Syria that didn't quite work out. And then there's East Germany, the infamous Cold War-era state whose Berlin Wall symbolized division until its dramatic reunification with the West. We'll journey further back to the mighty Ottoman Empire, which controlled vast lands for centuries before finally crumbling after World War I, and Gran Colombia, Simon Bolivar's dream of a united South America that quickly fell apart. And let's not forget the intriguing cases of Tibet, a once independent spiritual kingdom that was absorbed into modern China and Prussia, a military powerhouse that shaped European history before quietly fading away. But not all lost countries were massive empires. Some, like Czechoslovakia, split peacefully into two new nations, while others, like the Republic of Texas, enjoyed a brief stint of sovereignty before joining a larger power. What led these nations to their ultimate fate? Could some of them ever come back? And are there any modern countries at risk of vanishing next? Stick around as we uncover the rise, fall, and legacy of these lost nations. You might just look at a world map a little differently after this. And also check out the country that had the shortest existence in history. The Soviet Union from 1922 to 1991. At its peak, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, was the largest country in the world, covering 11 time zones and stretching from Europe to the Pacific Ocean. It was a communist superpower, rivaling the United States in the Cold War and leading the space race, sending the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into orbit. But despite its global influence, the Soviet Union struggled with economic stagnation, internal dissent, and a disastrous war in Afghanistan. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed overnight, breaking into 15 independent countries, including Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. The Soviet anthem was replaced, but oddly enough, its melody was later reused for modern Russia's national anthem, a nostalgic nod to its past. Even today, many Russians and former Soviet citizens debate whether the USSR's fall was a tragedy or an inevitable outcome of history. The Republic of Texas wasn't just another rebellious territory. It had its own currency, the Texas dollar, navy, and even embassies in London and Paris. Texas was recognized as an independent nation by the United States, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, but not by Mexico, which still considered it a rebellious province. One bizarre fact: the Texas Congress once debated adopting German as its official language due to the large number of German immigrants. Despite its independence, financial troubles and security concerns led Texas to join the United States in 1845, and the rest, as they say, is history. Czechoslovakia was born after World War I. Emerging from the ashes of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it became one of Europe's most industrialized nations and was home to the famous Skoda and Bata brands. However, World War II saw it invaded by Nazi Germany, and later it fell under Soviet control. After the Cold War, tensions between Czechs and Slovaks grew, leading to a peaceful split in what became known as the Velvet Divorce. Unlike many nations that broke apart in conflict, Czechoslovakia's division was so peaceful that some people say it was the most civilized breakup in history. East Germany, or the German Democratic Republic, GDR, was one of the most heavily surveilled states in history thanks to the Stasi, its infamous secret police. Ordinary citizens were often spied on, with 1 in every 50 East Germans working as an informant. The Berlin Wall, which physically divided East and West Berlin, became the ultimate symbol of the Cold War. But did you know that an East German soldier accidentally became the first defector over the Berlin Wall? Just 2 months after the wall was built in 1961, border guard Konrad Schumann made a dramatic escape, jumping over barbed wire while being captured in an iconic photograph. The United Arab Republic from 1958 to 1961. The idea of a united Arab world was quite popular in the 1950s, and Egypt and Syria merged to create the United Arab Republic, or UAR. However, while Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser was enthusiastic, Syria felt increasingly sidelined. Egyptians dominated the government, and economic policies hurt Syrian businesses. This led to a military coup in Syria in 1961, effectively dissolving the UAR. Interestingly, Egypt continued calling itself the United Arab Republic until 1971, even though it was no longer a union. The Kingdom of Hawaii from 1795 to 1898. Before becoming America's 50th state, Hawaii was a sovereign kingdom with rich traditions, a thriving economy, and diplomatic relations with major world powers, including Britain, France, and Japan. King Kamehameha I united the Hawaiian Islands in 1810, creating a powerful kingdom. However, sugar plantation owners and American business interests saw Hawaii as a strategic location, leading to the overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani in 1893. Despite protests and resistance, Hawaii was annexed by the United States in 1898. The US later issued an official apology in 1993 acknowledging the overthrow as illegal, but the kingdom itself remains lost to history. Gran Colombia from 1819 to 1891. If Simon Bolivar had his way, Gran Colombia would have been a Latin American superpower, stretching across Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama. For a while it worked. The nation had a strong military and a charismatic leader. However, regional rivalries, economic troubles, and the sheer difficulty of governing such a vast area led to its downfall. After its collapse in 1831, Bolivar famously lamented, "America is ungovernable. He who serves a revolution plows the sea." Today, each of its former territories remains independent, but Bolivar's dream of unity lives on in Latin American politics. Prussia, from 1525 to 1947, was the powerhouse behind the creation of modern Germany. It was known for its elite military, often summed up by the phrase, "Prussia is not a country with an army, it is an army with a country." Its militaristic culture shaped European history, and it played a key role in the Franco-Prussian War from 1870 to 1871, which led to German unification. But after Germany's defeat in World War II, Prussia was dismantled and its lands divided among Germany, Poland, and Russia. Today, the name Prussia exists only in history books, but its influence on German culture and military tradition remains strong. Tibet, from 1912 to 1951, often called the Roof of the World, was a Buddhist kingdom led by the Dalai Lama. After declaring independence from China in 1912, Tibet functioned as a self-sufficient state for nearly 40 years. However, in 1951, China invaded Tibet, claiming it as part of its historical territory. The Dalai Lama fled to India, where he remains in exile today. Tibet is now an autonomous region of China, but many Tibetans still see themselves as occupied. In an interesting twist, Tibetan passports issued before 1951 are still recognized by some countries, even though Tibet no longer officially exists. The Ottoman Empire, one of history's longest-lasting empires, ruled vast territories across 3 continents for over 600 years. It was known for its multi-ethnic culture, architectural wonders, and powerful sultans. However, after losing World War I, the empire crumbled and its final remnants were abolished in 1922, making way for modern Turkey. Fun fact, The last Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed VI, was exiled to Italy, where he lived out his final years in relative obscurity. Yugoslavia, from 1918 to 1991, was a melting pot of ethnicities and cultures uniting Serbs, Croats, Bosniaks, Slovenes, Montenegrins and Macedonians under one state. After World War II, it became a communist federation led by Josip Broz Tito, who managed to keep the country together despite deep ethnic tensions. However, after Tito's death in 1980, nationalist movements grew, leading to brutal wars in the 1990s. The country collapsed into 7 separate nations, with some of the most tragic conflicts seen in Bosnia and Kosovo. Today, Yugoslavia exists only in nostalgia, with some still wondering, could it have been saved? And finally, Crimea, the country that existed for just one day on March 11th, 2014. Yes, a country that existed for just one day. On March 11th, 2014, the Crimean Parliament declared independence from Ukraine, forming the short-lived Republic of Crimea. However, just 24 hours later, it was absorbed into Russia following a controversial referendum. The international community still debates Crimea's status, with some recognizing it as part of Russia and others considering it Ukrainian territory under occupation. It may have been one of the shortest-lived nations in history, but its impact on global politics remains significant. Final thoughts. These lost nations were once powerful, influential, and in some cases thriving. Some were wiped out by war, others merged into new states, and some simply collapsed under their own weight. History is filled with stories of change, and as we look at modern geopolitics, who knows which countries might disappear next? If history has taught us anything, it's that no nation is immune to change. Throughout history, nations have come and gone, shaped by wars, diplomacy, and shifting borders. Which of these countries surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights and interesting stories from across the globe.